Hey everyone, how is it going? It has been a very long time since I've done a knife review. I apologize for that. I know I'm probably the flakiest reviewer in your subscriber feed. There's a lot of reasons for that. Life can get in the way, but a big part of it is admittedly that I'm just not quite as passionate about the hobby as I once used to be, which can be a very difficult thing to admit. However, I have kind of discovered the reason why, and a part of it, a big part of it, would probably be that I'm not that enthused with a lot of the designs that companies have been using on their knives lately. I'm very much an old fogey. I miss how the knife reviewing scene was probably about 8 to 10 years ago. I loved seeing all the different designs that came out at that point in time. We had some goofy, stupid stuff at that point too, but we didn't have a lot that we would call strictly boring. These days, I feel like you have a lot of boring designs, a lot of out there designs, and a few in between. Sorry about that. Whew. And when I stopped and thought about it, it made me just go, well, why not review knives in a style that I find attractive, and hope that it happens to help someone along the way. And with this Gonzo Firebird model F759M in blue, that is a great example of a classic design being done by a company in the modern age. Now, this has been in production for a few years. I've actually had this knife for a couple of years now, and I have to say, it is a fantastic budget knife. In fact, whenever I bought it, I spent about $20 on it, but looking on the website and on Amazon right now, they are selling for right around $15, which means this is actually going to be my Inexpensive Knife Series episode 47. And that's right, it's on a Ganzo, or a Firebird, or a Gonzo Firebird. Now, for those of you who don't know, Ganzo is a company that makes knives in China using other companies' designs as inspiration. Some people will call them bootlegs or knockoffs. Some people will go extreme and call them counterfeits. However, I don't think that any of that is entirely fair. To be a bootleg, or a counterfeit, or a knockoff, it would really have to try to, present itself as the other brand. This doesn't say Spyderco Delica anywhere on it. It isn't claiming to be a Spyderco or a Bird Metallark. It is claiming to be a Gonzo Firebird, and it just happens to use design elements from those other knives. And we've seen this before with these Chinese companies like Ganzo and Enlin and Sanrenmu. In fact, here is a Sanrenmu 710, aka the poor man's Sabenza. Years ago, everybody knew this knife, and pretty much everybody loved it. I don't know how popular it is in today's scene, but it used to be a very big deal. Yes, it ripped off the Sabenza design, but no one really called it a counterfeit Sabenza, and that's the same kind of situation here. Yes, this is actually copying the Bird Metallark 2's design, not the Delica. There are a few differences that make this a Metallark 2 clone, but it isn't claiming to be a Bird Metallark 2, and in my honest opinion, this may very well be better than the Bird Metallark 2. I don't have a Metallark 2 here to compare it to. I have owned them in the past. I will buy another one in the future, hopefully, to compare against this in a video all by itself. But I think, in my experience, this may be actually a little better than Spyderco's own budget version of their Delica. So, let's go ahead and show off the packaging, because a lot of folks love to see the packaging, and I do try to keep it when I can. Firebird, made by Ganzo and designed by Firebird. Model F759M in blue. This also comes in black, orange, green, and pink, if I recall correctly. You can see they are made in China. It is a folding knife. You have your Facebook and Instagram info there. Not too much info on the box itself, just kind of repeating a lot of the same stuff. However, when we open this box up, it is actually kind of nice because it does come, if I could open this up, with a nice little drawstring bag. So that's cool. Obviously, you're not likely to use this since the knife does have a pocket clip. But funny enough, it also comes with a Gonzo Firebird brand Band-Aid, which I found hilarious. And then you have, like, a little bit of information about how to take care of your knife in the company. So they put some care into the packaging, honestly. This is more than I see from most knife companies, especially at this price point. When you compare this to what you get with a Kershaw or a CRKT or a Gerber, I would say this is kind of cute. It comes with a little bit more, and there's a little bit more care put into it. But let's move into the blade. Does this look familiar to any of you out there? It probably does, because it's very much copying both the Bird Metallark 2 and the Spyderco Delica design, in that we have that nice full flat ground leaf shape drop point blade. This one is made out of 440C, by the way. See if I can get this to focus. Come on, there we go. 440C, as opposed to the Bird's HCR13 MOV or the Delica's. I believe they're still using VG10. I probably should have checked before recording the video, but I'm going to assume they're still using VG10. How does the blade steel stack up compared to the HCR13 and the VG10? Well, I've owned Delicas, I've owned Bird Metallark 2s, and I can say it sits somewhere solidly in between. This does have better edge retention than the Bird HCR13 MOV. It absolutely does. Now, the Bird HCR13 is still solid. In fact, I have an old school Bird Metallark 1 here that I've carried and used for years, as well as the Spyderco Persistence and HCR13 MOV, and I've carried and used these knives quite a lot, and I am very happy with their performance overall. However, if I'm being completely honest, I do have to give credit to the Ganzo. I find that it holds an edge for probably a few cutting sessions longer than the Bird HCR13. It takes an even finer edge, and it resists rust just a bit better. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this will still rust on you. If I can get this to focus. Focus. Come on. You can see the forming of some rust there. I live in a very humid environment, and I do try to keep my knives well oiled, but sometimes I forget, and you can see this is starting to rust after probably 7 months of neglect, but that's very little rust for that much neglect in this level of humidity. If this was, an HCR13 steel from Bird, I think it would have rusted out by now. So, to stop being long-winded, better than Bird HCR13, however, not as good as Spyderco's VG10. I mean, how can we expect it to be? This is a budget knife. This is a $15 knife. The VG10 will be even more rust-resistant. It'll take an even finer edge. It'll be actually pretty comparably easy to sharpen, and it will hold its edge for a bit longer. Now, how much of a gap is there in edge retention between 440C and VG10? It all depends on your heat treat, honestly, because the two steels are closer than I think a lot of folks would like to admit. And the proof is in the pudding that back in the day, we used to call N690 a European equivalent to 440C. Now they're calling it a European equivalent to VG10. That speaks volumes to how similar the two steels really are. Again, the Spyderco VG10 is still going to hold a better edge. It's still going to be a bit better. But my question to you is, this is $15. What do Delicas run these days? God, 8 years ago, I bought a Delica for $50. That was the average price of Delicas back then. These days, I'd imagine they're somewhere closer to $70, maybe $80 a piece. And if we're being very generous and saying, like, lowballing it at like $65 to $70, I still have to ask the question, is that difference in edge retention worth that difference in cost to you? It's really all a matter of perspective. Personally, with my experience using Spyderco VG10, I don't know if I can say there's a $50+ difference in blade performance between this and the Spyderco. Now, in overall quality, construction, fit, and finish, yes, there is definitely the money's difference there, but in pure capability of the cutting performance, ease of sharpenability, and rust resistance, there's not that big of a gap, in my personal opinion. Lockup on this knife, by the way, solid. We have no side-to-side, up and down. I can flex that lock bar if I rock it, but I can do that with every single lockback I've ever handled. Yes, even cold steel triad locks. Yes, even custom-made folders. If you rock a lockback enough, you will start to feel that back lock begin to flex underneath all that weight. It's physics. It's what's going to happen, because that is being pressed into the blade, and when you're pushing that blade back, eventually that spring is going to have a little bit of give. If it didn't, you would have a virtual fixed blade, and you'd never be able to get it closed. That's just how that works. In terms of deployment, comes out nice and quick, very smooth. A little bit of wrist action I typically use, but you can get it open without any wrist action whatsoever. So it does have a nice fast deployment. We have this ovangular hole in the blade as opposed to the Spyderco round style hole, or as opposed to the Bird teardrop shaped hole or talon shaped hole. However, I don't find that it makes deployment difficult by any means. Your thumb is still able to grab on, you can still get a very good purchase on that, and flick the blade open nice and quickly. And if we have a look inside, one of the things I like to do with thumb hole knives is look inside that thumb hole to see how well finished it is in there, because with a lot of knives, they actually left them pretty rough. Let's see how the original Metallark is holding up to it. Yeah, you can see that. It's a little bit rougher on the inside of that thumb hole. Spyderco persistence, pretty well taken care of, pretty well polished. The Ganzo here, yeah, honestly, that's pretty impressive for such a budget knife. And it's a minor little thing that has no effect whatsoever on performance, but I think it's neat when just talking about the overall quality of the blade itself. Obviously, this is a lockback. We do have that detent, so it's nice and easy to get your thumb in there and close the knife. We do have a fully ambidextrous blade in the sense that we have all four corners of the knife for carry. I personally carry it right hand, tip up. It has that Spyderco Delica style spoon clip, and it has a very good grip on the pocket. Matter of fact, I brought a pair of jeans in here so I can show you guys how this will carry in a pocket, using the back pocket for ease of visibility. You can see there. I personally think this is the perfect amount of knife to have sticking out of the pocket. I like having something to grab onto. I've never been a big fan of deep carry clips. I've said that so many times in the past. So yeah, I really like the pocket clip on this knife. I think it's great. We do have a lanyard hole there. Talking about fit and finish, you can see that that lanyard hole isn't cut the best. It could have been a little bit smoother, could have been a little more round. This side looks pretty good, but this side's a little rough. But you could get your lanyard through there no problem regardless. The handle, by the way, is 3.9 inches long, so it's a nice medium-sized, or smaller to medium-sized handle. I would say, I wear a medium-sized glove, and I can fit my hand on here just barely, but you can choke up a little bit. We do have a notch here to choke up, or man, I am out of practice. But yeah, we can choke up here and get more control over the blade, and that does give us a little more room for our hands. If you have larger sized hands, this is probably going to be a bit too small for you. The handle is made out of glass, nylon glass fiber is what they say. Very similar to FRN or Zytel or GFN or any of these other synthetic handles. It's basically the same thing. There may be some slight differences in what synthetics are used in it, but it results in the same overall effect. A lightweight synthetic handle that's very durable, and it's not likely to crack on you and break apart like a plastic would. I mean, it's a form of plastic, but it's much more durable than your run-of-the-mill cheap frost cutlery type plastic. And you may notice that it's mimicking the Spyderco Volcano grip, but there is one problem with their attempt to mimic that grip. Can you tell what it is? I'll give you a second. If you said it's moving in one direction, you would be correct. It is moving like a crappy boy band. It is all moving upward, whereas with a Volcano grip, it would be flared out at different points, somewhere around the midpoint of the handle. We'd have an alternating texture pattern to give better grip. This is only moving in an upward trajectory, which means it's only going to provide grip when we run our thumb or hand down against it. So it's not going to be quite as good as the actual Spyderco Volcano grip for traction. Speaking of traction, we do have some jimping cut into the back of the blade here, as well as the back of the handle. The jimping on the handle is pretty whatever, but it's very effective on the blade itself. Not amazing, but it does work, and the same thing with our choil right there. Overall, though, it is an ergonomic knife. The handle's a bit squared. I would have liked, this would be a little bit better if they'd have rounded these edges. Come on, focus. If they'd have rounded these edges just a little bit, because it does feel just a little boxy in the hand. But overall, it's a reasonably comfortable knife. I haven't developed any blisters or hot spots when really putting this thing to use, so I can't complain too much. We do have some skeletonized stainless steel liners in there, as you can see. And if you are curious, this knife is fairly light at 2.4 ounces. So, very, very light knife to carry around. You're not going to really notice that you have it in your pocket. So if you are really weight conscious, maybe you're a TNP fan, or maybe you just don't like feeling your blade on you all day long, this is definitely going to be very serviceable for that. I've carried this knife many times, at one point for the course of several months, and I personally really loved it. I didn't find any issues with it. I never found that it was too heavy or too bulky. So, I don't think you're going to have any issues carrying this around as your EDC. Don't know what else I can really say about the knife, honestly. I mean, for $15, you get a very solid blade steel that's above the overwhelming majority of its competition in its price range. You get a tried-and-true tested design. And by the way, I mentioned this is not a Delica clone, it's a Metallark clone. One of the ways you can tell that is the existence of this finger choil right here. The Delica does not have this, the Metallark does. But, you know, overall, it's still a great budget alternative to the Delica, and, in a way, a budget alternative to the Metal Arc 2 that I feel is actually better. You know, again, we have this tried and true tested design, a solid blade steel, a great blade shape. It's comfortable, it's light, it's very inexpensive, so even if you do manage to break it somehow, it doesn't cost anything to replace. I mean, $15, anyone can afford $15. Even the kids with an allowance, even the people on a budget, and that is the reason I love stuff like this. It's the reason I began reviewing in the first place. I was a kid on a budget, on an allowance type budget when I started reviewing. Probably on this channel, it's probably been 12 years. If we include my previous channel, we're probably closer to 13 or 14 years. I was a kid when I started reviewing, so I know that a lot of folks out there are budget conscious, and this is a very budget friendly option. And I love to see that, especially in this day and age where a lot of knives are just getting more and more expensive. You know, things that used to be $18, like the Drifter, are now like 30 to 40 bucks. Things that used to be $50, like the Delica, like I said, are now pushing probably $70 to $80, I would imagine. I haven't looked, but if I had to guesstimate based on inflation, that's what I'd say they're running. And it just, you know, it kind of breaks my heart a little bit to see that these things are becoming so expensive. There was a time you could buy a Spyderco Tenacious for $30 all day long, $28 if you got a good deal. I know these days they're running closer to $45. And it's just sad to see that so many things are becoming so much more expensive, but luckily for us, we have companies like Gonzo, like Sanrin Mu, like Enlin, that are out there putting out quality stuff for an affordable price that we can carry around and use every single day. Competitive options, I don't have a lot to show here because, again, I haven't really kept up with collecting. I haven't bought a lot of newer stuff, but I will show you a few things. Here's that Spyderco Persistence. These probably run closer to 35 to 40 these days, I would imagine. HCR 13 MOV blade, G10 handle, 4-way clip. It's actually the same overall design as that Gonzo clip. Go on, if I can get this to focus. There we go. G10 grip, definitely a little higher quality. Jimping's a bit better. Cost is much higher. Between these two knives, I still do prefer my Spyderco Persistence. I won't lie to you guys. I've always loved the Persistence. I carried them for years. It's a fantastic knife. This is the same one I've had for probably the last 7 or 8 years now. Probably longer, actually. Go back and look at my Persistence review, whenever that came out. That's how long I've had this. But it's much more expensive, so keep that in mind. I don't have a Metal Arc 2 to show, but I'll show the Metal Arc 1 again. You know, HCR 13 MOV steel, FRN handles, also 4-way position clip, lockback design. Just pretend this is a full flat grind like the Metal Arc 2 is. I believe the Metal Arc 2s run somewhere in the $25 to $30 price range. Here is the Sheffield Gunnison that I reviewed not too long ago, or a couple years ago now, I guess. Hollow ground drop point Sebenza style blade, 440A steel, great jimping, 1-way carry clip only, aluminum handle, liner lock, right around that $15 price point as well. I would take the Gonzo over the Gunnison, but I do enjoy the Gunnison quite a bit. Let's go ahead and move these out of the way. Sanrin U710 is and always will be a budget contender. HCR 13 MOV blade, maybe 14 MOV, I can't remember. Right hand tip down carry only clip, great jimping, great thumb studs, comes out lightning quick, super smooth, locks up like a bank vault. Very ergonomic in hand, very inexpensive. Last I checked, these were right around 11 bucks. I'll go ahead and say that they probably come closer to 13 or 14 these days. Really should have researched, but a nice budget competitor against the Ganzo. If I had to pick between the two of them, this has the better steel. This is a little more comfy in hand. I do like the hollow grinding a bit better, but I do like the position of this clip more. I'm going to call them a tie for me personally. For me, they're a tie. How about the Camillus Cuda Mini? This one is the Walmart version, which means you have a Zytel handle and a 420 HC steel. However, you can get the standard version with G10 and AUS 8. Our deployment is this very interesting disc-type deployment. Comes out nice and quick. Spear point blade, right-hand tip-down carry clip only, liner lock, about 20 to 25 bucks. I will take the Gonzo over the Camillus personally. And I could show a few more things, but there's really not too much point. Honestly, if you're on a budget and you're looking for a great, high-quality, budget-friendly EDC knife, this is the way to go. If you're torn between this and a Metal Arc 2, again, I'm going to say I like this better than the Metal Arc 2, but whenever I can, I will pick up a Metal Arc 2 and do a comparison video of them side by side, just for you guys, so you can determine which one is truly the better Delica alternative. But until then, I hope you guys found the video helpful. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and until next time, peace, and take care. See you later.